Do you have a healthy self-image? And is that just vanity? Or is it important? And how does your self-image and my self-image affect the way we see other people? Well, welcome to Timeout. My name is Windt. You know, our self-image is important because it's under threat from everybody who wants to shape it into the way they think it should be. And even in the world, they want you to conform to an image that suits them. But I want to share with you this morning why you should protect your self-image and why that is so important, and even how that affects your relationships with other people. So don't go away this morning. But before I do, let me just say something about your self-image and your self-worth. Now, you've often heard people use those two terms and they go hand in hand. And they are a little bit different. So let me start with your self-worth. What is our self-worth? Your self-worth is how you feel and see yourself internally. And the way you feel and see yourself internally is then reflected out towards other people to see like a mirror, and that becomes your self-image. And if that worth is a lot, then you have a healthy self-image. But if that worth is low, or if it's a low number, that is going to be reflected outwardly in your self-image. And people may just say you have a poor self-image. And you may ask this morning, Jack, how do I change that self-image? Where does it come from? And why is it important? Now, before I answer that, and I'm going to answer it, I want to make another statement. The way you and I see people will determine, and when I say see people, the way we value people, when we see them as a high value, we will be able to receive from those same people a high worth. But when we put a low number on them, a low worth, or rather a low value, then we will receive a low worth from them too. So it's dependent how you and I see people, about how we can receive from people that we meet. And that affects our relationships with everyone around us. So let me go to you a scripture where this all comes from. Genesis 1 verse 26 and 20 speaks about this, and it says, God said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness. And those are two interesting words, and I want to explain it to you in a moment, but let me read it on. And it says, let's give them dominion over the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea and all the animals in the land. I'm paraphrasing it, but you get the picture. God said, let's give them dominion, because with this image we're going to give them and this likeness, they should be able to rule and not be subdued. So remember that. Now, you know, when God said He made us in His image and in His likeness, to explain it, I want to use a natural analogy. Maybe you, as a father or a mother, you've got a son or a daughter, and maybe somebody knows you well, but they've never met your daughter or son, and they see them for the first time, and they say they are a splitting image of you. They look just like you. They are like made in your image. And then they start to talk to that boy or girl, and they start to see, wow, not only do they look like you, but they sound like you. They are like you. They weren't just in your image, but they're in your likeness. They are like you. And I've heard people say that about my children. Perhaps you've heard people say that. And that's what that means. And it's scary, because when God said He's making us in His image and in His likeness, it means that He expects when people meet you and I, that people would say, you are really a person in the image of God. And when they hear us speak and they get to know us, they say, you are just like God. Wow. That's the expectation God had when He created us in His image and in His likeness. That's why that is under threat. The enemy came in the same time as this scripture was written into the garden, and he deceived Adam and Eve, and he tried to destroy that image and likeness. And when we find, after that event, we find that Adam and Eve are naked and afraid in their garden that God gave them. Instead of having dominion, they were now subdued and afraid, hiding behind a tree. Because of what? Because they forgot that they were created in the image and likeness of God, and they should have dealt with the serpent to have dominion over him. but they chose to listen to a lie. And so it affected their self-image right back then. And it affected their self-worth. All of a sudden, they didn't feel as great, and they hid from God. And that's what happens when we have a poor self-image and a poor self-worth. We somehow hide from God because we're fearful of Him, because we're afraid He's going to judge us. And we need to understand He created us for a reason, in His image and in His likeness. And so I want to say that if you see people with a high value, that maybe you feel, they don't feel that way, but you feel that way about them, you may just find that they open up and they become a lot more of worth to you. They can bring something into your life because now they feel you are treating them as a high value person. But the contrary, as I said before, if you treat them as a low value person, they will be of no worth to you, and they will feel that way. And that takes me to another scripture. 1 Peter 2 verse 9 says, you are a chosen people. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. If you're a Christian, if you're a child of God, you are a holy nation. And that you were called, God called you to, that you may declare the praises of Him that called you out of darkness into His wonderful light. We are the people that are declaring God's image. We are shouting it out. Maybe not always verbally, but we are presenting ourselves as if we are presenting God. And when people hear us, they see something of God that looks exactly like Him. And so I want to encourage you, don't ever give up on your self-image. Don't ever think it's vanity, because you and I were purchased with a great price. And that means we are worth a lot. And when we are worth a lot and we believe it internally, we will reflect it out to the world, and they will see that you have a healthy self-image. My name is Windt. You've been watching Timeout, and I'll catch you next week.